Okay, thank you everybody for joining. My name is Balaji and I'm the VP of Product Management at DDN. And I'm going to spend a few minutes with you now, maybe I think 15 minutes, to talk about DDN, who DDN is, what we do for AI and data management, and how does it fit with Vulture, and why and how do we have this great partnership here, right? So a little bit of introduction. DDN has been around for about 30 years, right? And started out with high performance computing, building data management platforms for high performance computing. And we power, over the last 30 years, we've powered about 70% of all the world's top supercomputers across the world, right? North America, Japan, Europe, right? And some of the most famous installations for high performance computing have been powered on the data management side by DDN, right? So historically, we've been the high performance data management platform for HPC, and ever since AI came into the scene about 3 to 4 years ago, we were fortunate to be able to translate that high performance computing data management capability directly into AI. And I'll talk a little bit about how that's directly applicable and how we accelerate training and inferencing at scale, that the opportunity just fell into our lap. And the partnership with Vulture became that much more meaningful because we are, at the end of the day, we're building an infrastructure and a set of tools that can enable customers, developers of all kinds across all market verticals to accelerate AI, and being able to handle the data across different domains, across different verticals, across different protocols, extremely important. And being able to tap into it as quickly as possible with as low latency as possible, right? So let me spend a few minutes talking about that, and I love the participation and I love the opportunity to be able to answer some of your questions. So at the outset, what we're seeing here is a list of customers, just a sample that represents the broadest category in the industry. This is not niche. This is being able to bring our legacy strength in high performance computing and managing the data and directly applying it to AI, right? And you can see there are vast categories of companies here: automotive, financial services, Wall Street, medical, pharma, drug discovery. It's a huge hit with some of these drug discovery companies, where we can accelerate the time to discovery for a new drug from 10 years to almost a year, 10x, right? We'll talk a little bit about that. But broad interest and broad set of customers looking for solutions to their AI challenges. And again, just to emphasize the point I already made, we've historically seen a lot of success and strong traction in large-scale supercomputing environments, high-performance computing environments, and we're fortunate to be able to replicate that directly into the at-scale AI, whether it's training or inferencing, right? And we have some great partners, such as some of the names you see over here. A little bit of history. When the first GPU server was being built by NVIDIA back in 2017, I want to say, right? There was no such thing called a GPU server before that. So the NVIDIA founder and CEO, who's known for his rigorous selection process, looked around the industry to see, okay, I'm building this high performance GPU server. Who do I want to select to manage my data layer below that, right? So there's the compute layer, GPUs, right? And there's the data layer, where you store all the data lake, and it keeps expanding, right? Data goes only one way, right? It keeps expanding. So what do you do to manage the scaling data at very high performance and very low efficiency? So they did a lot of searching around in the industry, and they picked DDN. This was back in 2017, right? And ever since 2017, we've been fortunate to be DDN's chosen data management layer for 8 straight years. So that's how strong, that's how powerful, that's how low latency, that's how scalable our platform has been. to constantly be NVIDIA's chosen provider for 8 years in a row. And you can see the quote from Jensen, where we're fortunate to be able to participate in all their AI initiatives at scale. So broadly, so that's a little bit about DDN. And we have two broad products. One is focused on training, called the Exascaler, on your left. And the other one is inference focused, called Infinia, on the right. And you can mix and match. And the reason why we only had one product up until recently, right? Up until 2 years ago, we just had this one product called Exa, which is the most popular platform for high performance computing. It's a managed Lustre, high performance file system, and it works great at scale. Very robust, very reliable, very scalable, and it's been battle tested in many HPC installations over the last 3 decades. When the AI GPU-driven AI infrastructure happened, driven by NVIDIA's GPU server, and we were fortunately at the front seat, we had the opportunity to sit with Jensen and his team. And what we realized was there was an opportunity to purpose build a data management layer for GPU compute, for non-VM, bare metal, that's high performance, low latency, and at massive scale. So we started investing in developing a AI-focused data management platform, which is called Infinia now. It didn't have a name for 6 years. We've been in development for about 7, 8 years now, and we finally launched it in January this year, and we're seeing great traction. XAI is one of our well-known customers, right? And they've been a very good customer. They've been a happy customer, and they're deploying it at a massive scale. And so that's a great validation to come from one of your toughest customers. XAI is also it has a very stringent use case, right? So we're fortunate to be able to launch a product with a demanding customer, great use case, and at a large scale. And we're seeing increasing demand for inferencing at scale, and Infinia best fits for that purpose. Why? Because Infinia has some unique things in the data management world that very few platforms have. One platform might have one, another platform might have another, but bringing them all together, you see it very infrequently. And there are three attributes. If you need one takeaway from this talk, I'll leave you with this. There are three attributes to a very successful data platform for AI inferencing. One is you need to be able to handle any data type that's thrown at you. Block, file, object, whatever, right? So being able to handle, I call it a bucket, right? You throw in any object in the bucket, it should be able to hold it. So number one, being able to handle all data types. Second, being able to handle any workload across any vertical. Healthcare, financial services, hedge fund use cases where microsecond latency is super important, right? Any data type, any data location, geo-distributed, right? And you want resilience, disaster recovery, all that stuff. And very low latency and high performance and scalable. So three things. Resilience, being able to handle data types, and being quick to respond to your requests, right? Whether it's a SQL query engine. So one of the beautiful things we did with Infinia, which you won't find in almost any other data platform, we built in a SQL query engine right in there, right? And so let me show you a picture of how that looks. So this is a software-only platform. For the first time in our history, we've seen so much demand in AI that we said, okay, we're going to abstract away the software from the platform. What you're seeing here is the whole appliance, right? The hardware and the software built into that. But we also deliver it over the cloud as a hybrid model where you sell only the software or you sell it along with the appliance for ease of use, ease of management, right? For on-prem use cases like the government customers, right? They want a total on-prem solution. So the appliance you see over here is our latest appliance, tailor-built for AI, and it has the software in there is basically a KV data store. So it can natively handle any data type. It can handle block, it can handle object, it can handle file, and at scale, which is proven based on our HPC roots, right? So it can do that, and we have a SQL query engine built right in there, so that you can SQL query it. And the biggest benefit that we designed it for, and that resonates most with customers, is we save them enormously on cloud costs. And if you ask me why, this is the other takeaway that I want you to have. If you want to know why, think about a typical hybrid use case where you have a little bit of on-prem gear and a lot of your data is stored in the cloud somewhere, right? So now when you're training your models and you're inferencing, let's say RAG inferencing, you're going to call that data. And guess what AWS is going to do? Every time you have data egress, it's a huge bill. But if you metadata tag your data and you run a SQL query in there, you minimize data egress fee. That's a huge cost saver. We've seen some customers save up to 30% on their cloud costs. And that alone pays for itself in, 10 months, right? So they buy Infinia, subscription model, they save this huge bill on, let's say 30% on cloud egress costs. It pays off in a year. It's a no-brainer, right? So for that specific use case. But the bottom line is, you have a data management platform that in the old days was just a repository, right? You save data, you call it, and then you do intelligence with it. Now the intelligence is slowly going to the data layer, where you're not only storing the data across different, you're unifying the data across different platforms, across different geos, different protocols, different workloads, but you're also making it intelligent because you can directly query it. You can ask it questions, it's going to give you answers. So we did that, and then we went one step further. What we did was, okay, what can we do to make it even more intelligent to help our customers even more? And then the third thing we did in a layered approach is we set proactive notifications. Call me if you get a data of this kind. So if you're driving a Tesla, you find a new stop sign in a new country that's a hexagon instead of an octagon, that data comes in, it gets automatically tagged and it pings you. You don't have to keep looking for it. And then oh, there's a new data type here that I need to train the model. Until then, you don't need to retrain. But once you get this new data type, you need to retrain now. So event-driven retraining or event-driven AI actions. So that saves you on egress fee, on training time, on training resources, so you can better use all that for inferencing, right? So all these, we've seen great adoption with customers, and Vultr being a great partner that can leverage all these. One of the few globally scaling service providers that can leverage these capabilities to offer that benefit to customers on a subscription basis, right? You don't have to commit to upfront cost, upfront gear, upfront capex. Vultr will deliver that in partnership with DDN, and you can go direct to DDN, you can go through Vultr and scale it globally across your geolocations, right? So that's one big area where Vultr partners with DDN to deliver that to customers. Being able to intelligently process and mine the benefits of the data in ways that we've never done before. So, where'd my clicker go?
There's an Apple notification. The middle.
Sorry.
Mac.
Oh, thank you.
Later.
Thank you. So there's a visual representation of what I just talked to you about. It adds a little more details. There are various stages, and I won't bore you with this. Many of you are familiar with the various stages of AI. But for those who are not familiar, there are different stages of driving training or inferencing, right? Data preparation takes up a lot of resources typically. And you have to pre-process the data. You have to make sure the tags are good, and you're bringing it into the right format. You're pre-processing the right way before you're running your training or inferencing. And you have to move the data to your location of choice so that you can get the right latency and the right performance characteristics. But regardless of what the name says across these different stages, clearly, the bottom line is there are multiple stages in the AI pipeline when you're doing training or inference. It's different for different verticals and different use cases, right? For pharma and life sciences, it might be different from the financial industry. But regardless, you're going to see some form of this when you're going through training or and inferencing, and being able to load the model and run it and doing it often is one of the main bottlenecks for performance and latency. And being able to do that, we've demonstrated about 8 times faster than what model loading you can have in the industry. So that's one. The second thing is, and NVIDIA CEO Jensen has said this in almost every keynote, when you're doing training, the NVIDIA does a lot of checkpointing, and for those who are not familiar with checkpointing, you have to pause every few minutes, let's say an hour, right? And make sure all the data, because there's a likelihood of failure of the GPU server. So you want to store all the states before some GPU server goes bad. So very frequently you have to do this checkpointing, and if you have 10,000 GPUs, that's a lot of servers. It takes a lot of time and resources. So you don't want to start, stop, right? You want to keep doing it real time without impacting the performance of your servers, and that is a big cost element to that, because every time you pause a big GPU bank of 100,000 GPUs, as in the case of XAI, it's a lot of time, it's a lot of wasted money, right? So you want to invest in a good data platform, management platform that can do this while you're running the training and inference without having to pause, right? So that's one of the big benefits. We saw 16x improvement, and it's validated by NVIDIA, right? So that's where a good data management platform benefits you in terms of value for the money invested in it, so much so that it can pay you back in a few quarters time frame. Now, looking at the application stack, and I'm sure many of you here relate to the application stack there, where you might say, okay, I have this infrastructure, Vultr enables me to do all these things. What about some of the standard frameworks such as PyTorch? Fully integrated, and we've spent a lot of time making sure that applications run with popular frameworks. So the takeaway from this slide is, regardless of all the complexity that you might see below the data protocol layer, you don't have to, as an application developer, you shouldn't have to worry about any of this. We'll take care of this. And in fact, we are, for the first time in the industry, we are releasing an SDK, storage SDK, which you would, as a developer, you could just run it off of a cloud, right, as a standard SDK. You don't need to know anything about storage. In the past, it's helpful to have storage domain expertise, being able to understand what block is, how to handle blocks and route them and all that. But with a standard SDK, it becomes like any application development activity, right? So we're enabling that, and we're going to make it available on the cloud, so that a cloud of your choice, so that customers and developers can just go use the SDK, and we'll even have a free trial, I think, for a month or so. So you'll have a good way to test drive it before you can figure out how to use it. So bottom line, we're abstracting away all the complexity and enabling more intelligence to the users across different market verticals and use cases. Just a quick summary of the numbers, right? Not to get too deep into numbers, but you'll see there's an order of magnitude or more benefit in using a high quality data platform like Infinia that's been designed and architected specifically to accelerate AI workloads. So if you look at this bar here is so small you might miss it, right? So what this means is, if you have an S3 application, right, and if you object store, how many objects are you going to list in a second, right? Let's say you have a massive scale data lake, right? You have 1 million objects. Can you list? If you type in list, can you see all the 1 million objects in 1 second? If not, how long is it going to take, right? So that's a good metric for how quickly can your data platform respond to your query. So if you query and say, okay, tell me how many files are there, and if you go take a coffee break and come back, it's still running, right? It's a bad recipe. So what you see here is a representation of how quickly your data layer can respond to your queries. Or inversely, if you have 1 second, how many files can you see in your, when you ask it, and this is what we've demonstrated on Infinia, and as a benchmark, this is what AWS S3 Object Store does. So more than an order of magnitude benefit. These are real results. I'm happy to show you if you're interested. It's been validated, and tremendous momentum, and some of our customers are really excited about this. And with our SDK, and with 1 month free, you have nothing to lose. I encourage all of you to try it out. And again, Vultr has been a great partner in reaping the benefit of these wonderful capabilities. So thank you to the Vultr team for all the great partnership. I'll finish with one last slide, probably a couple last slides. This is just to show you the an easy use case is a Q&A rack pipeline. There are elements of this that look similar to a standard Q&A rack pipeline, but essentially the intended outcome is you ask a question, right? Let's say you have 1 session. How quickly does the platform respond, right? As a user, you shouldn't have to care about if it's storage or data layer, compute layer, whatever. So I'm just running something off of my API. I'm asking it a question. How quickly can I get an answer? How accurate is my answer, and how updated is my answer, right? So if I ask, if there's 1 session, that's one, and then if I scale it to 10,000 sessions, 1,000,000 sessions, simultaneously people asking it queries, how quickly are you able to respond, right? If NASA is sending a rover to Mars, your number of viewers are going to spike up 1,000x, 10,000x, right, to 1,000,000 viewers, right? Which a YouTube channel normally would be 1,000 users, right? So how do you scale? If they're asking questions, right? So those are the questions you should be asking when you want to choose a good data management layer, right? That's intelligent, smart, and does things proactively. So with this, we showed about 10 to 16x acceleration in being able to cold load the data and being able to query. And remember what I said about the egress fee containing the data in your locality through metadata tagging and just running SQL queries on the metadata, so you can minimize the egress and also minimize the data movement. So that maximizes your performance and latency. So tremendous benefits to a generic Q&A rack pipeline. And I'm running tight on time. So I'll finish with this one where, and again, this is the culmination of the great partnership Vultr and DDN have, where the DDN data layer smoothly integrates with Vultr's complete offering in being able to bring the tremendous benefits of generative AI and inferencing particularly. We've had a use case that the Vultr CMO talked very fondly about a few weeks ago, I think about 3-4 weeks ago, where there was a medical use case where there was a patient blood draw, and based on the results of the blood draw, there's an inference engine that suggests follow-up treatment or actions or follow-on tests, and that has to be regularly updated, maybe every month or every quarter, because those results change, the demographics change, right? So they want to be able to keep up with the latest recommendations. So it's a great example, and it's all proprietary data, very safe, very secure, within the walls of the the protective layer of the healthcare company. But great example of inferencing, RAG-enabled inferencing, updating your inferencing, and driving recommendations based on the results of the blood test. So again, the summary is a well-designed data platform is extremely important for 3 things, right? To be able to handle all data types for all verticals and use cases at any scale and geographically dispersed. And you wouldn't believe how much it makes your life easier if you have intelligence built into the data layer, such as the querying and proactive notification that we've spent a lot of time developing. So thank you again for your attention, and I'd love to be able to answer any questions you have.